Hello everyone, today we'll be checking out the new rule set Pillage from Victrix Limited, courtesy of Noodle Wargamers in France. Okay then, Pillage Ransack The Middle Ages from Victrix. This is the English language version of a French game that was initially designed by essentially a club. Got together to put this out, I believe. We see there the man responsible, Guillaume. It's a narrative-based skirmish game for the Dark Age / Middle Ages. You can see the book's fairly substantial. We have 130 plus pages. Where are we at? 131, yeah, is the last page. So broken up relatively straightforwardly. You've got a bit about the key rules of the game and the period. The game turn itself, which is 5 phases. Then there's a set of advanced rules, and then we have the faction army lists, playing the game multiplayer, narrative games and scenarios, and then a whole section on collecting and hobby, which is very good. Also, the other thing about this is there's a lot of really nice setups throughout the game. You'll see the sort of the hobbyists hobbying away, which I always appreciate. So the first part, your potted history of the early Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, gives you a timeline, which is all well and good, and a brief breakdown of a early medieval warrior if you've not seen one before, and then what you need if you're going to be playing a game. So I think most of us are there or thereabouts. The game uses Igo-Yugo and D6 based, so it's not going to be particularly egregious to anybody who's played any sort of war game before. And beyond that, it's relatively quick and simple. You only got 2 different types of units. You've got your infantry and your cavalry, and then on top of that you can have things like banner bearers, musicians and chieftains, but generally it's not going to change a huge amount. Throughout the book you will also get little potted histories, sidebars, things like that, that will give you a bit more insight into either something that's tangential to the rules or something about the period itself. So the game itself is broken up into 5 phases: initiative, movement, shooting, melee and fire. Initiative is diced off with draws going to the previous loser, and then you get into the nitty gritty. Now there are no main stats really, like a lot of other games that have simplified gameplay. You don't have a ton of move, weapon skill, strength, toughness, endurance, willpower. It's just been very basically put in unarmored, some armor and full armor. And depending on which of these you have will define what your opponent needs to do to take you down, and also defines how far you can move. So you can see unarmored infantry can move 8, fully armored infantry can move 6. So it's that simple. All movement, like I say, is in inches, and there are changes for crossing over terrain, hopping fences, going through hedgerows or rocky ground, that sort of thing. You've got your basic sort of movement section, and then after that we get into shooting. Like I say, there's some terrific pictures in here from Guillaume's collection. A whole host of figures. I've been playing Own It, Need It throughout most of this book. Your combat and shooting mostly comes down to 2 rolls. You roll to hit, and if you're successful, your opponent rolls their defense, and if they fail, they die. Very few things have more than 1 wound in the game. Probably the exception that you'll come across most often is cavalry, because the steed can die and the rider will be dismounted, not the rider. Shooting, checking the range is key. Likewise with charging, there's no pre-measuring in this game. So you need to be fairly accurate, because once you've declared your action and you've measured, you're in it come hell or high water. There are a few different weapon types that you can use for range. There's slings, javelins, bows and crossbows. They have bonuses, pros and cons, as you might expect. Some are extrapolated a bit further than I think they should be, simply to make them different enough in game terms to be worthwhile. Slings, for example, should probably be not as poor compared to bows as they are. Shorter range and less likely to hit. But, you know, you have to make these sort of changes and challenges whenever you're writing a rule set to make it actually gameable, rather than just have everything does the same on the same numbers. Melee is simultaneous unless somebody is impaired in some way. It could be by holding a Danax, which is a heavy weapon and means that they go last, but otherwise mutually assured destruction is in there. And there are some advanced rules like raising a shield. There's also super advanced rules later on that allow you to form shield walls themselves, which is nice. So if you're defending an obstacle or fighting uphill, you also will find yourself in either a better or worse position. After melee, we get a bit about the cavalry, how they work. And like I say, you can't fall off. So if you have cavalry, you're best making a set mounted and dismounted as well. You're not dealing with massive amounts of figures in this game. So maybe if you've got 4 cavalry mounted and then 4 horseless riders on foot, you know, things like that is going to be more than enough in most cases. But when people are shooting at you, they can either hit the rider or the mount. And like I say, the mount generally is unarmored and might go down quickly, at which point you end up with riders being tossed into the dirt and they can injure themselves as they fall. It really lends to the narrative aspect of the game in that regards. And the final phase in the turn sequence is the fire phase. And it is exactly what it sounds like. You run about and set fire to something. The whole idea with Pillage is somebody is the raider, somebody is attacking, and then the other people are defenders. So you're going in, you're looking to carry off loot, carry off people, carry off livestock, or set fire to all the surroundings. And it's very simple, you know, a couple of rules. It modifies by +1 every turn. So if you're standing there desperately trying to set the thatch on fire, it gets easier over time, as long as the weather doesn't change. And once fire is lit, it can spread throughout the whole vicinity. You could even set fire to these lovely fugu buildings. Fugu! Don't set fire to the lovely fugu buildings. That's very mad. You're a bad man. Chapter 3 is the advanced rules, so this adds in other stuff you don't need for your base game. So morale checks, pillage, loot, how you go about looting an area, searching for gold coins, that sort of thing. And again, it's a very narrative game. So you want to be doing things like trying to find where the monks have stashed the gold inside the monastery, or see if there's a cache in a chapel, whatever it happens to be. Otherwise, a very dull game it would be if both people are just slapping each other outside. Here we have some of our special characters. Chieftains have 3 hit points instead of 1, so pretty much the only people you run into who won't just die automatically when they get found. And then there's a few other troop types like berserkers or warhounds for the Irish, things like that. We have ships and naval battles, which is quite nice, something you don't see a huge amount of. And there are some really nice ships on the market in a variety of things, from resin to plastic to MDF and HDF. So you can, if you are prepared, to have either a large river running through the town that some sort of Viking raiders have come tearing through, or alternatively have it at a coast. Actually have your stuff come barreling up, disboat your men, try and raid and get back and get the boat away without being harangued by the locals. It's quite nice. Weather. This is something that should be included in all games, to be brutally honest. I don't know why it's not. It does change how things play. If you have a super defensive force and your opponent is riding around you or pinning you in place with a lot of archery fire, you find very quickly there's nothing you can do. If all of a sudden you're playing under heavy rain and shooting becomes worse, roads give you no movement bonus, fire checks are worse, all of a sudden that mobile force who were just looking to harangue you and shoot you off the board discover they can't do that, and your slow and steady spearmen start to actually take a tone on people. So I really like weather, and again, because it's so narratively driven, I think having things like that in there are absolutely key, along with the boats themselves. Your faction lists for your armies, very simple. For every 20 warriors in your force, you can have a chieftain. You must have at least one. After that, you can recruit more. You can have a single banner and a single war horn if you want. No more than 25% of your force can be equipped with ranged weapons, and no more than 25% can be cavalry. I will also say cavalry costs quite a bit. Your gold coins are your points values for the game. You can have talents here for your chieftains. They can take 2 of these and they give them sort of buffs either to themselves specifically or to their force that they're bringing with them. So if you want to tailor a force of Welsh who are particularly good at shooting, you might find that there's something in there that will work for them. And then the lists themselves are 1 page per. So they'll have a special ability at the top, and then you have just your equipment costs and who's getting it. So your warriors, they cost 10 gold. If you want them to have armor, it's going to cost you 5 per man, so that's 15 per man. With a spear, 20 per man. Take 8 of those, 160 gold. If you're only playing a 500 gold game, you're going to have not too many people in there. And the horses are not available for the Vikings, which is true but a shame. They were quite fond of them back home. But horses for the Anglo-Saxons, 35 gold each. So you have your Normans, your Irish, your Scots, your Picts, Bretons, Welsh, and generic types, in case you want to do some bandits or something else. Make up some narrative bits and pieces of your own. There's also a whole host of Eastern factions that have been released for free via the medium of Victrix's website. So you can download the Magyars, Rus, Byzantians, I think, are in there as well. Don't hold me to that though, because I've not looked through the Eastern stuff yet. Chapter 5 is playing the game. This gives you your breakdown of how games played, what the armies are built up with, and then a selection of scenarios. And then finally this. And this I quite like for many reasons. One, I always get nostalgic when I see a collecting bit about the hobby in a rule book. I think a lot of rule books are aimed at people and they assume that they already play. And with something like this, this may be the first step that people are taking into historic wargaming, albeit via a narrative route with a sort of GW adjacent slant with some of the rules. So telling people about collecting and preparing an army, it's all right. Chances are they've done that before. But then the painting, not everything has to be shades of black and brown, like you see on TV all the time and in movies. I actually have a rake of photographs where it not only shows the various colours of dyes that they can make, but also shows how 3 different fabrics dyed with the same red dye, a Damascus silk, a linen, and a wool, looked very different in shade, despite the fact that all 3 were dyed from the same batch of dye. So, you know, when you're painting, you can actually do quite a lot with your colours. There's a substantial amount. This doesn't even include the greens. There were quite a lot of really nice greens and muted greens as well that could be got. So this is not exhaustive, but you can find more online. Look at my project for Saga. That will show you. Also, there's a whole host of building instructions for various types of terrain for your tabletop to give you as much bang for your buck as possible. And again, yes, there's some cracking stuff out there you can buy, but scratch building is very simple. If you've got cereal boxes in the house and PVA glue, you can put a lot of this stuff together. That's just a green scrubbing pad on top of a cereal box, and off you go. You've got an Anglo-Saxon building that you can set fire to, which is just neat. I've mentioned it already, there are downloads. One of the things you want to look for, apart from the quick reference sheet, and I'm still hoping that quick reference sheet comes out in printer-friendly version, is the errata. There are a few errors that have crept in here. So I see people constantly asking about, I've seen SP on a table for doing damage. What does this mean? And it's just a holdover from the French, where when they translated it into English, that table got missed. So it's still unarmored, some armor and full armor, but instead of having UA, SA and FA, it's got something else on them. And these are things that you always get something like this creeping in, especially when it's been translated from another language. So if you get this and you start reading through it and find something that just doesn't make sense, I suggest taking a look at the errata first, because chances are it's already been caught by somebody. And once you look at that, it will sort of tell you exactly where you need to go. And if it's not there, then reach out. There's a massive community for Pillage already, and it's sort of growing all the time. So somebody will be able to give you an answer if you haven't already found it. But yeah, definitely want to take a look at if you're interested in small scale Dark Age skirmish. Pillage, I think, is fantastic for that narrative flair, and should be a lot of fun in the sun. Okay then, folks, there you have it. That is Pillage, a fascinating little rule set. It's been developed over time from a club that really liked the Middle Earth strategy battle game, and then decided to develop their own Dark Age game because it has that narrative feel. It's not a competitive game, and you really shouldn't be playing it like that either. You've seen by the army lists, they're relatively light in how you create your list for your various nation, faction, or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot to dig into there. There's also more coming as well. Already we've seen Eastern Kingdoms, Rus, Busies, things like that are sort of cropping up through downloads on the Victrix website. There's talk about another book possibly to expand it in the future. So they have plans for this beyond what is currently available, either in English or French. Few issues with the book. They've already been sort of found out in the errata. So if you do pick it up, I suggest you go and find the errata. You can download it directly from Victrix website and see those things where maybe they forgot to change over the titles from English to French on the armor sort of tables, things like that. So it's nothing major. I do know there was a bit of a kick up over the use of AI art because it was generated and then an artist came in afterwards and did some tweaking and the like with it, which people weren't at home to, but Victrix have already come out and said that going forward they'll just be using 100% artists' work rather than using AI as a footstep to sort of get along with that. So if that's something that you're dead set against, they have heard the community and issued a statement on that behalf. So it's not a major issue for me. although a dormer window on a Saxon house was a bit weird. I will give it that. But let me know what you think below. Until next time, bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.